Welcome to episode 4 of the ActiveState Podcast Series. Today, it's episode 4, Everything Python, Trusted Publishers and Authors. I'm Pete Garcin, Director of Product here at ActiveState, and joining me today is Jeremy Page.
Hello, morning. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Page, software engineer and Python specialist at ActiveState.
So what we're going to do today is just sort of dig into what's going on in the Python ecosystem. And specifically, we'll talk a little bit about the new Trusted Publishing Initiative, which has just recently been expanded. And we've joined that cast of trusted publishers on PyPI. Why don't we start here, Jeremy, though, just talking a little bit about, maybe we'll just talk a little bit about what trusted publishing is, and maybe even backing up about why is it needed?
Sure. Yeah, as being part of this effort, trusted publishing is basically a way to push packages to open internet repository without passwords and still get that same security. So if you use a trusted entity such as ActiveState, we will do all the handshaking and signing and boring stuff for you so that your package just goes right into the cloud.
Yeah, I think that the need for this, I think that people maybe underestimate how risky it is to have those long-lived passwords that you're sending around places, and just what a big target the public repositories have become for different supply chain attacks.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is right that before trusted publishing, tokens weren't really scoped on Pi. I know some other services you can get scoped permissions, but if you are Netflix, but you've only published some silly example project, but I get a hold of your token, I could publish a serious new package under your name and I can change your password and do whatever I want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people were using their full passwords. And I know that PyPI has done a few things recently, enforce two-factor. I think that came in pretty recently, where now everybody has to at least have two-factor on there. But even still, you don't want to be passing around those long-lived tokens. So yeah, I think that that's one of the big benefits. I think that there's some workflow benefits too to having something like trusted publishing, where before you were using something like Twine, possibly just manually from the command line. For those who listen, Twine is like a command line utility for interacting with PyPI for publishing packages. Anything else to say on
Yeah.
that, Jeremy?
No, yeah, definitely Twine still is pretty popular in this space, but it was another one of those decisions where we sort of have analysis paralysis in Python publishing where, okay, you've gone through all the work of finding the Python version you want to work with, and you've figured out the build backend you want to work with, and you just discovered whether you want to use Conda or pip or ActiveState, and then you built your package, and now you have to choose the tool to upload it. Because if you're using Poetry, then use Poetry to upload, and if you're using setup tools, use Twine to upload. And there are other options. You could just hit the API manually with the REST API.
Right.
So decisions, and trusted publishing generally tries to take away some of those choices from you in a good way.
Yeah, I think that it makes it so that you can have something that's more reproducible, maybe a little bit, something that's a little bit more automated as well, probably. I mean, you can obviously automate those other things as well, but in this way, it cuts out one step as well, right? Because you can go directly from whichever trusted publisher. If you're using GitHub, you're using ActiveState, GitLab, whatever, you can go directly from your CI environment, essentially, to pushing it directly to PyPI. It also opens the door down the road for some enhancements that can be made to the kind of information that gets stored on the public repositories. So in a prior episode, Dana and I talked a little bit about different supply chain attacks, and having Provenance is something that I think is valuable. We want to recap that here, but why is that important for us to know where something's coming from?
Yeah, definitely recap it here, and that's a big part of trusted publishing. But essentially, it's more of an audit trail. It's not this AI thing that's going to come in, warn you're about to be attacked. It's for postmortem, but it's very important because when something like Log4j comes along, you pretty much don't get to do any more business until you've finished that audit trail. So you can either go and do it yourself by having 158 GitHub tabs open in your web browser, or you can ask someone like ActiveState for just an SBOM, which would be the software bill of materials.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's even one of the things that we reviewed recently in the last webinar that we had. Dustin and I went over about how even on PyPI, if you publish with trusted publishing, it will show that this was uploaded by a trusted publisher there. But then even going further, being able to get, if you have a reproducible environment, then being able to get good provenance is important. And I know that we also touched on this in that webinar, was that there's PEP 740 right now that is being reviewed. So for those who are not Python, PEP is a Python enhancement proposal or whatever. And this one is proposing that you could also publish um, provenance information alongside your packages on PyPI. So that would allow you to be able to more accurately validate. The trusted publishing is one step, right? Where you can see, oh, this package was, published via a trusted publisher. And you can look at the history tab and see all the audit trail there that you're talking about, the sort of chain of custody. But then even moving forward, it sounds like they're going to be able to generate provenance alongside that.
Yeah, that's one thing that maybe we take for granted at ActiveState is that just because you use trusted publisher doesn't mean that you have provenance for your entire build. Because again, there's a lot of steps to publish a package to Python, including building it. And you can totally build your package offline with and whatever the heck was laying around in your system and then trusted publish that. Most of these systems you are actually building in the same system using a different job alongside the trusted publishing. But with ActiveState, we always build from source, you and your dependencies. So without that, you don't really have the chain of custody. You only have one layer of trusted publishing. And if you need to check your dependencies, you'd have to hope that they did trusted publishing, or you're back into that sort of depths of Git history or some other audit trail.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because the sort of example that we used before was that you can, it could just be somebody publishing something they made on their laptop, and they might not have really paid much attention to where they pulled down their dependencies from, which also could have been made on a laptop that's running whatever, versus something where it's built from source and you have a verifiable way to know that everything that's included in here, we know where it came from, we know where it was built, and where it's going. I think that, are there any things in terms of general sort of in the package ecosystem, in the author ecosystem, is there anything else that is around, any other benefits to being able to use something like trusted publishing, any other security things like two-factor that we are aware of recently?
Yeah, well, uh, PyPy did also, in a sort of related effort, but not entirely, introduced orgs, which is kind of very slowly picking up. But before that, there was really no way to verify where a package came from. I mean, packages on PyPy have authors, and those authors
Mm.
are whatever name they signed up with, whether they were a personal developer who later went on to join Amazon or Google, or a CTO who then left the company. There's no really way to track this. But with verified publishing, it is recorded the exact address that the publish came from. So then that doesn't quite solve the problem. But if you, the third party developer, trust that trusted publisher, then you can see, oh, this came from the GitHub profile that is linked with this company, or this came from ActiveState, and I can go to their org. Maybe it belongs to the company I'm at, or not the one that says dash for real.
Yeah. What is organizations like a mandatory feature these days, or is it optional? And is there a way to verify the organizations? Like you're saying, is there a way to differentiate the GitHub versus the GitHub dash for real?
I mean, I'm not part of any organizations, so I don't know all those answers. It's definitely not mandatory, and still, from what I can see, the rollout is going slowly because I think the orgs are being hand approved, which is maybe good news for security, but also results in a very long startup time to get all the orgs that we want up there. I don't think there's any sort of like web finger protocol or cert signing that guarantees these, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm also not a member of orgs on PyPI, but I do remember them announcing it, and that this is a way to collect. I'm assuming that it works something like Git, and that you can belong to a number of organizations, and that these are ways to, again, sort of manage credentials for a group of individuals, along with the sort of credential changes that we're doing with trusted publishing and the two factor that's going on. I think that one of the other things is obviously, um, other risks is like account takeovers when we're talking about this kind of thing, where if somebody's going to take over an account, that's going to potentially be a risk if you're using long-lived credentials like Trusted Publishing had. The other thing is, like, obviously people committing their secrets to things like GitHub or having them baked into Docker images or things like that. And I think that the move to sort of very short-lived tokens is very valuable. Do you want to talk a little bit about how short-lived are the tokens for trusted publishing?
That's a bit of a hard question because as the trusted publisher, there's actually more than one token we have to deal with. And they get
Right.
progressively smaller. I think your active state auth token is on the order of half a day or so, where you can talk to your project that you are an owner of, and then that gets a medium token of about an hour where we verify active state with PyPy, and then you, the publisher job, get another token of about a minute or 5 minutes or something to actually finish the sending your bits across the internet. If that doesn't work, we'll progressively go back in order of these certs and try and get new ones for you. But the actual build should take place in a matter of about a minute, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then it won't work anymore.
Yeah, I think I mean, that having credentials on that really dramatically reduces the kind of attack surface there because but the attack vectors because you have to know when somebody's publishing and that this token is available within this 5-minute window, like you're saying. It's very versus something that might be if it's committed to a Git repo or even if it's configured in your environment kind of thing, right? It's some kind of it's in an environment variable on a machine that's floating around, which is not uncommon. That might be set once and then forgotten about. Do you want to talk about how trusted publishing came about? It sounds like there was a user survey from a couple years ago that drove both organizations and trusted publishing. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I know it did for organizations. The IPI was lucky enough to get grants to support I believe, full-time product manager for PyPy.org, who was able to push a lot of these ideas that have been floated by the community for a long time, but it takes funding sometimes to get them done. One of the first things they did was send a survey out to the general Python community, but they also reached out to some of us Python redistributors because we often have to deal with how things end up on PyPy, whether good or bad. One of the takeaways from that survey is absolutely we now have orgs on pypy.org. And I think Trusted Publishing also came out of that. And there are more good ideas, but they're sort of ranked based on that survey.
Yeah, I remember that one of the ones that when we started looking at doing trusted publishing, one of the ones that jumped out was there was, I think it was listed as one of the fundable projects was a generic wheel building service for the community. And I think there's a GitHub ticket for that that's still open. But our platform essentially, ActiveState's platform essentially performs that operation as a generic wheel building service where we're all kind of already ingesting everything from PyPI and building it from source and generating that for multiple platforms, any platform. So that was one of the initial triggers for us to approach working with PyPI to say, like, we're sort of already doing this. Maybe there's some way we could partner here. And that's when we first learned about the idea that they were doing trusted publishing via OIDC. And also we had this conversation a little bit about provenance that ultimately that's something where we can help contribute in that way. Once that's available as a thing on AI, we will be able to generate that kind of provenance on our platform.
Yeah, I mean, we already do. If you come to us, you can get that provenance right now, but we don't have a way yet to hand it to Pi so that you can see it elsewhere. We are doing it now, and we are making wheels for anything that comes out of the Python ecosystem right now. Sort of, we'll lazily evaluate your wheel for you rather than you having to have them already. And that's been a fundable project. The basically get more wheels on PyPy since before they had a PM, since right when wheels were early. It's been a fundable project for a long time. No one's really picked it up. Just mention real quick, it's so important to users because a lot of time the average Python person doesn't want to deal with sdists, which is the kind of package that's not a wheel. The other one, sdists require you running code on your system to install packages, which is not only an attack vector, but it's slower and has more chances of failure. When you get a wheel, you can't fail because of a build because there's no build. You could maybe fail to find distribution that matches you, or you just, I don't know, you don't have permissions to install packages on your computer, but you can't fail because of a build. And so getting more wheels means less failures across the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think that there are definitely maybe certain platforms that are better served for wheel coverage than others, and it's gonna probably depend a little bit on what's the popular system for developers. Individual developers might not have access to the other hardware to verify, does my wheel run on macOS or whatever, right? They might only be running a Linux box or something like that.
I mean, I don't know anyone who both builds and tests wheels or really any package on multiple platforms that is doing it locally. It's doing it without the help of some sort of CI process. If you do the CI, that's an investment. That's 200 lines of YAML that you might not understand. You're just cribbing from someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of plumbing to get all that stuff to work, right? To stitch it all together to get your code into the CI, to get it to build the wheels, to deploy it to the server. There's a lot there's a lot of pieces, moving parts there.
Yeah,
Trusted publishing obviously removes at least one of those moving parts, essentially.
right. And you still need build system.
Yeah. You still need a build system. So that's where I think that if you're a Python author and you're listening to this, it's definitely worth checking out ActiveState's platform to build your wheels, to even manage your dependencies, to work on during development. You can use our platform to keep track of all the dependencies, make sure it's all perfectly reproducible, and then hook directly into the trusted publishing and be able to publish your package directly to PyPI. And it's even set up that you can publish to your our catalog before it goes to PyPI. So even when you're in development and it hasn't already been, you don't have something published on PyPI that's maybe just an sdist or something, you can work with it directly in our catalog.
Very true.
So yeah, so maybe with that, we'll probably wrap it up. Again, if you're a Python author, you can head over to platform.activestate.com and get a free account and try all this stuff out. And the instructions for how to get started with trusted publishing are on our website as well. And we're going to have a few more episodes in this Active State podcast series. So yeah, Jeremy, it's been a pleasure chatting today.
Yeah.
And we'll see everyone next time.
Great. Bye.